Today we are going to look at Jyeshta Nakshatra. Jyeshta spans the last degrees of Scorpio and is the 18th nakshatra in the Vedic Zodiac. The name itself is significant. Jyeshta means the eldest, and in the Indian social context, that carries a specific meaning. The eldest is not simply the oldest in years. The eldest is the most important, the most senior, and the protector of the family. Jyeshta is the nakshatra of pre-eminence, of being first in rank, in authority, or in the esteem of others. As we will see, that theme of seniority and protection runs through everything this nakshatra governs, from its symbol and deity to the kind of people and careers it produces and to how it shows up in the charts of well known figures. Jeshta's symbol is a round, protective talisman. A talisman is an object that carries occult or hidden power. It is used to ward off danger or adversity. So, at the very heart of this nakshatra is the idea of protection through access to forces that are not visible to ordinary understanding. The presiding deity is Indra, the king of the gods in Vedic tradition. Indra is celebrated throughout the Vedas for his daring, his power, his fame, and his glory. He is a warrior king, someone who acts boldly and is praised for it. But Indra is also a complex deity. He is powerful and honored, yet he is also known for cunning, for jealousy, and for using his position to protect his own interests. Both sides of Indra, the glorious and the self serving, show up in Jyeshta. Together, the talisman and Indra establish the core tension of this nakshatra. Great power and the capacity for protection, alongside a deep connection to the supernatural and the potential for manipulation and misuse of that power. The key themes of Jyeshta follow from what we just covered. On the positive side, fame, glory, daring, the capacity to protect others, access to occult or supernatural knowledge, and seniority or preeminence in one's field. When Jyeshta indicates gain, it often comes through extraordinary or unusual means, sometimes through occult or supernatural channels, sometimes simply through the kind of audacious action that Indra represents. Unexpected patronage, being lifted up by a powerful benefactor, is also a theme associated with this nakshatra. On the negative side, the classical texts are quite direct. The ascendant of moon in Jyeshta can indicate two faced, hypocritical, and secretive behavior. When afflicted, Jyeshta can bring hard times and poverty. Saturn in Jyeshta in the second house of money, for example, is a classical indicator of financial difficulty. There is also a theme of patronage, both its legitimate and illegitimate forms. Jyeshta governs the use of seniority and position to extend protection to others. When that operates ethically, it produces genuine leadership. When it does not, it produces nepotism and cronyism. When the ascendant falls in Jyeshta, the themes of fame, glory, supernatural connection, and preeminence tend to be very visible in the person's life and public image. Let us look at three examples. Brad Pitt has Jyeshta rising. He's one of the most recognized figures in the world, someone who has maintained genuine cultural preeminence for over 3 decades. What is also notable about Pitt is the quality of his public persona. He consistently projects a sense of being capable, central, and protective, someone others look to. That quality of being the senior figure in the room, the one who holds things together, is characteristic of Jyeshta. Next, we look at Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley also had Jyeshta rising, and he illustrates the nakshatra's themes on multiple levels. The most obvious is the Indra archetype, explosive, unprecedented fame, a figure who inspired a degree of devotion that bordered on worship, and who was genuinely the first in his field in a way that permanently changed popular music. He was also the patriarch of a very specific world, Graceland. His inner circle, his management structure, all orbited around him as the central protective figure. But there is also another dimension to Elvis that is less commonly discussed and which connects directly to Jeshta's talisman symbolism. Elvis had a serious and sustained interest in mystical and occult traditions, numerology, the Kabbalah, various esoteric spiritual texts. He carried these books with him on tour and held late night discussions with his inner circle about metaphysical subjects. This was not casual curiosity, it was a genuine, lifelong engagement with hidden knowledge, the search for the talisman in a very real sense. The last example is that of Hans Christian Andersen, who also had Jyeshta rising. And he is a particularly instructive example because he illustrates themes that the other two do not. Andersen was born into severe poverty in early 19th century Denmark. By all conventional measures, his prospects were extremely limited. Yet, he rose to become the most celebrated writer of his generation through a series of what can only be described as extraordinary patronage. Wealthy and influential benefactors recognized something in him and funded his education and early career, lifting him out of circumstances that would have trapped almost anyone else. That pattern of unexpected, almost miraculous rescue through the generosity of senior figures is very specifically a Jyeshta theme. And then there is his work itself. Andersen's fairy tales are saturated with magical and supernatural elements, transformations, curses, enchanted objects, the intervention of hidden forces in human affairs. The talisman is everywhere in these stories. He achieved a level of preeminence in his field that has endured for nearly 2 centuries, and, and he did it by giving literary form to the very themes this nakshatra governs. The moon in Jyeshta shapes the inner mind and emotional nature. Here, Jyeshta's themes show up in how the person thinks, what drives them internally, and the kind of understanding they are drawn towards. Albert Einstein had his moon in Jyeshta. Einstein is a clear example of Jyeshta's connection to extraordinary and non ordinary forms of understanding. His method of thinking was genuinely unusual. He worked through thought experiments, imagining scenarios that no laboratory could produce, and arrived at conclusions that overturned the existing understanding of physics. That capacity to access insights through means that bypass conventional procedure connects directly to the talisman. Hidden knowledge reached through unconventional pathways. Einstein also achieved a level of cultural preeminence that very few scientists ever reached. His name became synonymous with genius itself, which is about as close to Indra's fame and glory as a scientist can get. Stephen King has his moon in Jyeshta, and he may be the most direct illustration of this nakshatra's supernatural theme in the entire list. King has spent his entire career mapping the hidden, malevolent forces that operate beneath the surface of ordinary life, which is precisely what the talisman is designed to protect against. His body of work is essentially a sustained engagement with Jyeshta's shadow side, the occult, the terrifying, the forces that cannot be seen but can certainly be felt. He is also unambiguously the eldest in his field, the most famous horror writer who has ever lived, the standard by which the entire genre is measured. Preeminence and supernatural knowledge in one person. Finally, there's Donald Trump with his moon in Jyeshta, and he illustrates the full range of this nakshatra, both its positive and negative expressions. On the positive side, he achieved genuine preeminence, a prominent business figure who became President of the United States, which is about as senior a position as exists. The Jyeshta themes of fame, patronage, and using one's position to protect and reward one's circle are all clearly present. On the more difficult side, the classical texts reference to two faced and secretive behavior and to the misuse of patronage also finds clear expression. Jyeshta gives the capacity for great prominence. What is done with that prominence is what determines which side of the nakshatra dominates. Physically, Jyeshta governs the neck and the right side of the trunk. In terms of careers and places, the classical sources identify several categories. First, the valorous, energetic, and famous. People who achieve preeminence through bold action in their field. Second, those involved in protection, police, peacekeeping forces, security personnel. The text also mentions refugees, those who receive protection rather than those who provide it, which reflects the other side of the same theme. Third, those connected with occult or supernatural knowledge, like shamans, astrologers, and practitioners of esoteric disciplines. Fourth, those involved in engineering, mining, and arsenal, fields that involve working with powerful and often hidden forces and materials. And finally, the text specifically mentions nepotism and inappropriate patronage, the misuse of seniority to favor one's own circle. That is not a career theme so much as a behavioral pattern, but it is worth naming because it is one of the specific pitfalls this nakshatra can produce when its energy is misdirected. To summarize what we have covered today, Jyeshta is the nakshatra of the eldest, of seniority, preeminence, and the protection that comes with holding a senior position. Its deity is Indra, the king of the gods, which gives it access to fame, glory, and daring. Its symbol, the protective talisman, connects it to occult knowledge and the use of hidden forces.